We actually had people registered for this webinar from all over the world, so I'm really excited to see who all shows up. I would love if everyone could bring up the chat box and share where you're listening from this evening so that we just can kind of get a feel for who all's on the call. And while you're doing that, I will just share a little bit about me. My name is Mindy Burke. I'm a certified transformational leadership and career coach. We're all leaders in one area of our lives or another, but it is my passion to help you as leaders create more time and space for the things that matter most. When life gets a little stressful, when it gets a little overwhelming, many of us tend to push our personal relationships and our own well-being to the back burner. And what I do is I help my clients to reprioritize how they spend their time and their energy without jeopardizing their careers. So with that, I noticed that I do not have the chat box up, so I can't see what everyone's putting in there. Oh, I don't see anything yet. Has anyone entered anything into the chat? Where are you listening from this evening? If you could enter that in the chat, that would be great. Okay. But I'll just keep going until we can see. Oh, listening from Halifax. Great. Thanks, Alicia. Wonderful. Okay. So if you're here on this webinar, I'm going to assume that you read through the description and that something resonated with you and maybe you'd like to improve some of your own outcomes in life. I see Lancaster, PA and Camp Hill, PA. Thank you very much, Terry Michelle. And Andrea Hershey, awesome. Thanks all for being here. So whether that outcome is being more productive, improving your relationships, losing weight, having a more balanced lifestyle, whatever that is for you, these mindset shifts will help you to improve those outcomes. And when I give you kind of a long list like that, I recognize that it's kind of a bold claim. It almost sounds too good to be true, but I do want to assure you that the mindset shifts we're going to talk about can be applied to any area of your life. Okay? We're going to talk about each one of these shifts from the context of why you're currently not getting the results that you want, and I'm going to share 3 reasons in a list, and then I will go into each one of them, share a little bit of information, and then I'll give you a mindset shift, and then we'll talk about a practice that you can use to continually work on the mindset shift over time, because anything good does take time to implement and consistency to implement it as a habit. Okay. So before we jump into the 3 things that might be holding you back from creating the outcomes that you want, I wanted to kind of give you a word of warning. Because you might get an initial gut reaction that, oh, that's not me. However, if you jump to that conclusion, I'm going to ask you why you're not making more progress toward the outcomes that you want than you currently are. There is something there, and I'm willing to bet that one or more of these 3 things may be coming into play for you. So allow yourself to be in the question of, what if this really is me? And then just see where that takes you. Okay? If you haven't already, grab a pen and a piece of paper, turn off your phone, close down your email, whatever helps you to be fully present, and make the decision to just be present over the next hour. I am going to try to leave about 10 minutes at the end to answer questions, and we'll open up all the microphones and we can have a discussion. If I go a little bit into that 10 minutes, I will stick around beyond the top of the hour so that I can answer some questions if you have any. Okay. All right, so we all ready to get started? I see all of your names and no faces. If you're comfortable with sharing your video, I'd love to be able to see you. That gives me someone to relate with. And if not, that's okay. Oh, I see you're in your jammies. That's okay. I won't judge, I promise. Okay, I am going to take a minute here and just share my PowerPoint. And of course, then it hid my chat box, so I got to bring that back. Okay. That's funny. Okay. So 3 reasons you're currently not getting the results that you want. Okay. First is that you're not committed to it. you think the outcome is not within your control, or you don't believe that you can do it. And I'm not going to claim that these are the only 3 things that might be holding you back, but these are pretty big. With all the clients and the people that I work with, 1 or more of these things show up pretty consistently. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1, that you're not committed to it. Now, I don't have to tell you that we live in a world full of instant gratification. We have cell phones, fast food, on-demand, Netflix, internet, credit cards, financing options. All of these things are meant to make our lives more convenient, and they do a great job at that. We went from a world where you had to handwrite a letter and hand it to a guy on a horse who traveled from town to town delivering and receiving letters, and finally, hopefully, he got back to you eventually with a response, if he ever got back to you. And the world we live in now, we don't even have to talk to anyone. We pick up our cell phone, we type a message, we hit send, and we literally receive an answer within seconds. So we are just used to getting what we want and when we want it. And because we don't have to take the time to think about it, we make our choices based on what we want now before what we want most even enters our minds. So if you go to the grocery store and you see a chocolate cake sitting there, you can pick up the cake, go home, and eat it before you even think about it. Long ago, you'd have to go to the store, buy all the ingredients, and go home and actually make the cake from scratch. You know, you'd have to get out the bowl, you'd have to dump in the flour, dump in the sugar, dump in the vanilla, crack your eggs, and then if you're anything like me, then you have to fish the shell out of the bowl, and then you dump in your whatever's left, your cocoa, and mix it all up. And all of that time gave you the opportunity to recognize, wait a minute, you know, I'm still trying to lose those 10 pounds. Do I really want to eat this cake? It's certainly not going to help me with that. Okay, so in essence, we're sacrificing what we say we want most for what we want right now. We're literally robbing from our future selves. Okay, we all start off with good intentions, but when things get a little bit too uncomfortable, or when it doesn't bring us the outcome that we'd hoped it would bring us, when it doesn't bring us the feeling that we want to feel, in that moment, we change our minds or we give up. Okay, now I want to pause here and say that I've actually had some clients, when I've talked to them about this concept, say, well, now wait a minute, I deserve some of these luxuries. I don't want to deprive myself. And in essence, what they're doing is they're using the, I'm going to say, excuse of self-care to fall off the wagon, to spend beyond their means, overindulge, and do whatever else they feel like they, quote, deserved in that moment. They tell themselves that they need to have or do certain things in order to feel a certain way, the way they want to feel. However, what very often happens is that they make decisions in the moment to feel better, thinking it's going to bring them a certain outcome. And then not only does it not bring that outcome, but then later on they realize now they have some sense of regret or some kind of negative experience revolving around what they've done. And just as an example, you know, imagine you go to the mall and you walk into this store and you see a beautiful outfit, and you just imagine in your mind walking into your office, head held high, you know, with the confidence that you look good, you're going to be turning heads, you're going to walk into a meeting, you're going to have more confidence, it's going to feel awesome, right? So you pull out your credit card, hand it to them, and you buy the outfit. And then 3 months later, you recognize, after wearing that outfit, let's say 3 times, that not only did that outfit not do for you any more than the last 10 outfits you bought, but now you have 11 outfits and the credit card bill to show for it. Okay? And because we're not following through on our commitments in the name of self-care, let's pause and take a look at self-care for a moment. There are 2 kinds of self-care. The first one is the one that most everyone talks about. It's a pampering kind of self-care. It's the massages, the baths, going out for dinner, the glass of wine, buying a new gadget, whatever it is for you. And this purpose of self-care, the purpose of this kind of self-care, is to relieve stress, satisfy that I deserve it mentality, relax, unwind to make you comfortable. And there's definitely a benefit to that kind of self-care. I am not speaking negatively here about that kind of self-care. We all need to relax and unwind. The second kind, though, hardly ever anyone ever talks about it, at least in the context of self-care, but it's equally as important. And that is getting up in the morning, even when you don't feel like you want to. It's setting boundaries in your relationship. It's showing up, even when you feel like canceling or putting it off. It's remaining focused on that project to get it done. And it's keeping our commitments, sticking to our diets. We all have those coworkers who have this relentless supply of like sweets and chocolates and cookies and all this stuff that they love to bring to work. Donuts used to be a big one in my office. But sticking to our diet in those moments when the good stuff's sitting right in front of you, that's hard to do. It takes self-discipline and it takes courage, and it can be highly uncomfortable. Now, one kind of self-care is no better or worse than the other kind. However, when we focus on the pampering kind and neglect the self-discipline kind, that's when we get stuck in that self-gratification loop, I'm going to call it. And we tend to sacrifice the things that could be exactly what we need to do to create the outcome that we want. Okay? Now, there are devastating costs to not keeping your commitments. And they're not only external, but they're also internal. We've probably heard a lot about the external costs of not keeping your commitments to other people. Things like losing trust, respect, credibility, decreased authority, power, control. There's a lot of examples I could give. One that frequently comes to mind, just because I have little kids, is, if you promise to take your kids to the park once a week, every week for 4 weeks, and you don't do it, they're going to stop trusting that you'll do it, and your authority with them might be diminished. Okay? More external costs are damaged friendships and damaged relationship with clients, business partnerships, sales deals. And ultimately, at the end of all this, it could come down to an impact on your financial security. Okay, those are all external costs if we don't uphold our commitments to other people. What about internal costs? Every commitment, okay, is an agreement that you have with yourself. Your brain actually registers that as something that you've committed to do. And when you don't follow through, it actually causes you to lose trust in yourself. Lose your own self-esteem, lose self-confidence, self-respect. If you say you're going to complete a project and you keep saying, I'm going to get that done by the deadline, I'm going to get it done, and you don't get it done, you don't uphold that commitment to yourself, you have a decreased faith in your ability to produce a result. So what's going to happen the next time that you have a project that's due? Your brain's going to stop believing that you'll actually follow through and get it done. A weakened sense of integrity. And when you're in this moment, just continuing on the example of the project that was due, you told yourself you're going to complete it by the due date, and you don't do it. Now your brain's going, okay, you said we were going to do this, but we didn't do it. Are we going to do it or aren't we? And there's this little back and forth that goes on in your subconscious mind, and all of that energy causes fatigue. Okay? Now, I used to believe that integrity was something that was linked to my commitments to other people. And I was really good at upholding those commitments. If I told someone else, and if I still tell someone else that I'm going to do something, I pretty much have to be on my deathbed. Something serious has to happen for me not to follow through. However, through a lot of coaching and mentoring over the last couple years, what I've recognized is that my integrity to myself, that was a little bit more shaky. I would cheat on my diets. I wouldn't follow through with something that I'd scheduled for myself to do. And my biggest one is that my snooze button is my best friend. I'm almost embarrassed to share with you, but I'm going to anyway because it's fun. For most of my life, my alarm clock was actually on the other side of my bedroom. So I would literally get out of bed and go hit the snooze button and go back to bed for 45 minutes. That's crazy. And what's even crazier is that within that like 9 or 10 minute window, whatever the snooze button was, I could completely fall back to sleep and have a dream before the snooze button went off again. I think it's a special talent I have. I don't know. But of course, now when I tell myself I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, my brain goes, yeah, right. When's the last time you did that? Okay, so just to reassure, I am still practicing all these mindset shifts myself. I've come a long way. I still have a long way to go. That's my biggest example. Okay, so unfortunately, we are all suffering from an epidemic of unkept agreements and broken commitments with ourselves, within our relationships, and with many other areas. Okay, so our first mindset shift is learn to trust yourself by being committed to do what you say you're going to do. Okay? Now, if you're not used to sticking to your commitments, that's not going to feel easy. So our practice on how we're going to get better at making this mindset shift, okay, how do you stick to your commitments if you're not used to it? First and foremost, only make agreements that you fully intend to keep. So many of us walk into an agreement with someone knowing that we really don't want to do it, or knowing that even if there's a little piece of us that wants to do it, we know we probably won't follow through. Okay? So slow down and really consider whether it's something that you want to devote the time, the energy, and actually follow through with. Okay? If you need to break a commitment, communicate it as soon as possible, and if you need to, renegotiate it. And that could mean something like, okay, I know we were going to meet for dinner at 6 o'clock, but here it is 3 o'clock. I'm totally swamped at work. I don't think there's any way I'm going to get out of here in time to meet you at 6. Can we push it back to 7, or can we reschedule till Thursday? That's a possibility, something like that. It's also possible that after watching this webinar, that you might go through your calendar and think, I really don't want to do that. So there is no shame in calling that person and saying, you know what, I know I committed to do that thing with you next Saturday, but I'm going through my calendar and I'm looking at my priorities, and right now that's just not at the top of the list. I'm really sorry. I'd be totally willing to help you find someone else to take my place or whatever works for you. But at least that way you're being honest and you're being open with them. So, you know, what could happen if you don't renegotiate that and you don't really want to be there? You're not going to be fully present. You're not going to be engaged. It's better to be upfront and honest that, you know, it's really not a priority. Let me help you find someone else, than to be in that place of them wishing that they had someone there that was more engaged and more excited about what you're doing. Okay? Find a system that works, whether that's putting it in your electronic calendar in your phone, whether that is using a paper calendar. I still know some people who do that. Make a list, put it on your refrigerator. Whatever it is that works for you, just find a system that helps you to keep your commitments in front of mind. So often, you know, we have 60,000 thoughts is the term that, or is the number that goes around most often that I hear. 60,000 thoughts a day. And in that is, you know, I have to remember to go pick up the kids from soccer practice. I have to remember to do the laundry. I have to remember to take cookies to the neighbor or whatever it is. So our commitments tend to get lost up in there. So find a system that works. So you think the outcome is not within your control. Okay, I can hear some of you right now saying, but there are things that aren't within our control. And of course, you're right about that. You can't control other people. You can't control natural disasters, the economy, when your car breaks down, things like that. However, there is a huge difference between trying to control the events or the circumstances that occur in your life and controlling the outcome or the result. Okay? In order to illustrate this concept, I like to use an equation. Okay? E plus R equals O. The E represents the events or the circumstances in your life. That's what the other people say or do, the car breaking down, the project that your boss assigns to you with 1 week's notice. Those are the things that you really can't control. In most circumstances, there's nothing you can do about those. Okay? The O represents the outcome or the result that you're going for. And you can't snap your fingers and magically lose 10 pounds or magically have that project created and done on your desk. However, the O is completely dependent on the R. Okay? The R is your reaction or your response. Okay? When you react, you're not consciously engaging in the moment. You're actually allowing your habitual way of being, your conditioning, to take control and drive your experience. You're not really considering what the consequence is to your outcome. Okay? And when you respond, you're consciously considering all of your options and you're recognizing that you can choose and therefore influence the outcome that you desire. Okay? The R is where your power lies. And this power shows up in your ability to control three things: your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. They're the only three things that you have complete control over. Okay? So in order for us to take control of our own lives and start creating the outcomes that we want, we need to take responsibility for the R. When you blame other people and circumstances for your outcomes, when you complain about what's going wrong, when you make excuses, you become a victim in your own life. We need to understand that when you feel like crap about yourself because of something that you do or you don't do, you can change it. And yes, you can change the way you feel, because as we just said, your feelings are caused by your thoughts. Okay? Now imagine for a moment that your boss tells you that promotion that you just applied for, that he doesn't think that you have the skills necessary to obtain that promotion. Okay, you have a couple of options. Okay, you could react, you could get angry and yell at him and blame him for your lack of career success. You could go inside and wallow in self-pity and tell yourself, you know what, he's right, I don't have what it takes, you know, I might as well just stay here and try and be happy with it. Okay? Or you could also have the response of, you know what? I'm going to go out. I'm going to create the skills. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. And I'm going to go after that position if it's something that you want badly enough until I get it. And then you can do that job better than anyone has ever done it before. And this isn't to prove your boss wrong. This is to prove you right. This is to prove that you can do it to yourself. How empowering is it when you set a big goal and you finally reach it? It's amazing, okay? But we spend most of our lives thinking this crappy feeling that we're feeling is something that just happens to us. We don't have any control over it. It's just not true, okay? And interestingly enough, when we avoid those feelings, we're like pushing them away, we're pretending they don't exist. We're actually trained from a very young age that when someone has what we perceive to be a negative emotion, that something's wrong with us, okay? When someone that you love is looking like they're sad or looking like they're angry, what's the first thing that you want to ask them? What's wrong? And then what do? You try to cheer them up, okay? But can you cheer them up? No, because only they can cheer themselves up. It's their thoughts that are affecting their emotion, okay? I'm sure you remember a time when you tried to cheer someone up. Let's just say someone that you care about was angry, and you try to cheer them up. And you're cracking jokes, you're maybe nudging them a little bit, trying to get them to come around to a more happy thought. And maybe after a while, they crack a smile, you know, they start cracking jokes back at you. And after a while, they kind of come out of it and get on with their day. Okay? But I'm sure you've also had the experience when someone you care about has been angry and you try to cheer them up and they get even more angry and then they stomp off in a huff, really ticked off at you, right? If you were the one who was able to cheer them up, the same actions you took the first time would have worked the second time, the third time, the fourth time that you tried to cheer them up. But that's not how it works. because the only thing that cheers them up is what they're thinking about. Okay? Most of our thoughts are habitual. So we need to become aware of what they are before we can simply change them or shift them. And when you begin to realize what thoughts you're having, it can almost be scary. I don't think I've ever had a client that hasn't commented in some capacity that they had no idea all the garbage that was running around in their brains. It's actually quite shocking for some people. Let's look at mindset shift number 2. When you take responsibility for your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, you become a co-creator of your outcomes. Okay? So how do you become aware of your thoughts? Take 5 minutes every day to brain dump everything that comes to mind. Okay? It doesn't matter if you agree with it. It doesn't matter whether it makes sense to you. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Write it down. Okay? Now, I will warn you, some thoughts that come up for you, you may not want to write down because you don't want to judge yourself or for having such terrible thoughts, or you don't want to, I don't know, make them come true. You don't need to show anyone. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Write it down anyway. Okay? It's the only way to become aware of them so that you can change them. You don't believe that you can do it. Okay? We all have things that we hold on to from the past. It could be something that someone else said or did to you. It could be something that you said or did to someone else. It could be an event that occurred. Maybe you've tried over and over in the past, but you haven't succeeded, and you perceive those circumstances to be failures at this point. Let me just share something with you. The past exists only in your mind, and it exists as thoughts. The past exists only in your mind, and it exists as thoughts. Okay? Now, as we just learned, the thoughts that you choose about those past events will dictate how you feel about that circumstance now, will dictate how you act, and ultimately, it will dictate your future outcomes. Okay? So let's take the example. These pictures are to represent your past. Okay? Let's focus specifically on the picture in the bottom right, the 5 kids standing there. Okay? Now let's imagine for a moment that this picture was taken at a family reunion, and these 5 kids are all cousins. Okay? Now notice that the 4 cousins on the left are all smiling. And 50 years later, as they look back on that experience, their thinking might be something like, man, that day was fantastic. We had so much fun. We laughed. We played games. It was an absolutely magical memory with fond memories, fond experience, right? Okay, they bonded. However, the girl on the right doesn't seem so happy, does she? Okay. She doesn't appear to be having a great time. Maybe her recollection of this day 50 years later was how the other 4 picked on her relentlessly and teased her all day long. It was a very upsetting and unpleasant experience. Same event, 2 different experiences, all based on their thoughts. Okay, so we have one more way to look at this sequence of what happens here. We have events, we have thoughts about those events, and those thoughts are what creates our feelings, our actions, and our outcomes. Okay? Thoughts are ground zero. That's where all the magic happens. Okay? Let's take a look at how we can shift our thinking about the past. All right, so this tool is based on the work of Brooke Castillo, and she will be the first one to tell you that she did not originate these concepts, that these are universal truths that have been taught for thousands of years, and she simply organized them in this way to help her clients. And I resonate with it, so I also teach this based on her tool, okay? All right, so this is the girl, and her thinking right now about that day 50 years ago was, it was the worst day ever. If she thinks that thought, it could bring up emotions in her, such as hurt, maybe resentment. Okay. The actions that might be driven, if she had that thought and feeling, was to avoid social situations, maybe even 50 years later, especially with her family. Okay. She maybe keeps her distance. Perhaps she has trouble making friends outside of her family even, and she might even be questioning her worth 50 years later. It does happen. Okay, the outcome to all of that is isolation, disconnection, low levels of confidence, disconnection from the family, few friends. Okay, all right, now if she could just shift that thought to something like, okay, so that was 50 years ago. My cousins were very immature back then. They were only 5 or 6, okay? But they've matured a lot since then. Maybe they're not so bad. Okay, that could bring an emotion of forgiveness or a loving feeling. And then maybe she's able to look back at that experience and begin to laugh at it. We all have experiences where in the moment it seems awful, but years later you look back and you kind of chuckle at it. Maybe she can get to that point. And if she can do that, there could be an outcome of joyful family time, connecting with her family. Maybe she could develop some thick skin where now she can pick and tease her cousins back and forth, right? And she can also learn how to create healthy boundaries in her relationships, okay? There are lots of good things that can come out of a mindset shift in this circumstance, okay? Gaining 30 pounds, okay? If you gain 30 pounds, that is the fact. I mean, your scale shows you that you are 30 pounds heavier than what you used to be. There's no emotion involved in that. It's just, it is what it is. It's a fact. Okay, that's your event. I gained 30 pounds. Okay, if your thought about that is, I am totally out of control, I'm eating like a pig, I feel disgusting, okay, the feeling that might be generated is depression, self-loathing, being really angry at yourself, okay? And then if you had those emotions, it might drive you to eat more. Many of us eat to avoid emotion, okay? And if that's the case, of course, your outcome is going to be gaining more weight. And then that creates a downward spiral, okay? Now, if you can shift your thoughts from I'm totally out of control to, man, wow, I really need to do something about this. Okay, this is out of control, but I am in control of it. Okay, that could bring a feeling of determination. And then that's going to drive you to go to the gym, get some exercise, eat some right foods. And then that will help you to lose weight. Okay, one last example to share, and this is your spouse yelling at you. Okay, we're not going to talk about what he says. We're not going to talk about what it means. The event is just that your spouse yelled at you. Okay? And if you're thinking about that is, man, I must have really done something wrong. He's really angry with me. If that's your thinking about it, it could bring up a feeling of being confused. And, you know, if you're going in your mind, okay, he's really angry with me. I'm not sure what I did. You go back through and try to replay everything that's happened over the last hour or the last 24 hours, and you can't come up with anything. Okay, your action most likely will be to avoid your spouse. You don't know what you did. You don't want to make it worse, so I'll just stay away. Okay, and that outcome then would be a disconnected and distant relationship over time, of course. Okay, now if we could shift that thought from I did something wrong, what did I do, to wow, he must have really had a stressful day at work. I think maybe I'll just let him cool his heels for a little bit and blow off steam. Okay, and you allow yourself to feel patience with him. That will bring you an action of giving him space, and then when he's ready, you can come back together and you can offer to listen without trying to fix it, and show him that you care in a way of just being there with him. And that outcome would be a connected and loving relationship. Okay? All right, so is the thought that you choose, the one that you believed would get you the outcome that you want, always going to do that? Is it always going to get you your desired outcome? Not necessarily. However, when you get to the outcome that's not the one that you want, that becomes your new event. Okay? How are you going to choose to think about that one? Okay? Many of us start, again, with good intentions, and we choose our thoughts thinking it's going to get us to a certain outcome, and we try that 3 or 4 times. It doesn't work. It doesn't get us to the outcome that we want, and then we kind of resign ourselves that it doesn't work, and we give up. Okay? We rarely stick to it until the outcome that we want is reached. Okay? Let's talk for a moment about new thoughts. Okay? Have you ever had a goal that you set and then there's a little voice in the back of your head that's kind of talking in the background? So let's take the example of losing 30 pounds. Let's just say it's the beginning of the year, since a lot of people do this at the first of the year. Their New Year's resolution is, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get healthy, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to look awesome by summer. Okay? And in the background, while you're saying that, this little voice is going, yeah, right, like that's going to happen. How many times have we tried that before? Okay? Your mental chatter is rebuking you in the background when you say your goals and affirmations, and that means you're not believing what you're saying. Okay? Now, understand that the purpose of a goal, a good goal, is to help you grow, to help you stretch, to help you get out of your comfort zone to learn and grow. Okay? If you set a goal that big that excites and scares you all at the same time, it's probably going to be true that you're not going to believe it at first. And if you don't believe it, you won't feel it. If you don't feel it, you won't be able to act in a way that's going to move you toward it, and you won't get the outcome that you want. Okay? So what we need to do is learn to believe it. Okay? And remember, our current beliefs are the ways of thinking that are as a result of what has happened in the past. Okay? So mindset shift number 3 is your past does not dictate your future. Okay? Your past does not dictate your future. And in so many of our lives, it runs us. Subconsciously in many cases, but it runs us. Okay? So how do we believe a new thought? We're going to talk about 2 ways. The first one is to turn that goal or that outcome that you'd like into a positive question. Many of us have been taught about setting SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, I'm trying to remember what they all are, time-bound, I missed the R, but you get what I mean, the SMART goals. We've been taught that, and we've been taught affirmations. However, again, if you say an affirmation, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, and you have this voice back here, it's time to try a different tactic. Okay? So if you ask yourself the question, why am I losing 30 pounds? Well, okay, I want to be healthier. I want to have more energy. I want to be able to fit into my old clothes. I want to look good in my swimsuit for summer, whatever it is for you. And that helps you to find some motivation to lose the 30 pounds. If you ask the question, okay, how am I going to lose 30 pounds? Okay, I'm going to eat less sugar. I'm going to walk around the block 3 times a day. I'm going to keep a food journal so that I can see what I'm eating. I'm going to maybe address the emotions that are driving me to eat. And then you have a bit of a blueprint or, a step-by-step process for how to get you to your goal. Okay, do you see how this works? So find a question that will lead you to a motivating and empowering answer or answers. Okay? Another thing you can do is create a thought ladder or a thought bridge. Many of us have real difficulty going from I'm completely stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overbooked, over here to, I feel peaceful and relaxed all the time and I spend good quality time with my kids every weekend, right? That's hard for us to make that big jump. So if you can find a thought in the middle that's a little more neutral, such as, okay, I'm willing to create an experience of relaxed and peaceful. I'm willing to set time aside for my kids. I'm in control of how I spend my weekends. One of my mentors, Brooke Castillo, she uses the concept of, okay, if I am currently in the state of mind where I hate my body, I think I'm fat and ugly and, you know, all those awful things that we tell ourselves, and we try to go over here to, I'm beautiful, I'm thin, tanned, and toned. That was my affirmation for a long time. It's hard for us to make that huge leap. So she suggests the neutral thought in the middle is just, I have a body, which is true. That's easier for us to believe. And it's not, it brings you out of the negative energy, the negative mindset, the negative vibration to a neutral place. And then we can step it up from there. It's just like when we create a big goal, again, we can't snap our fingers and say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds and have it instantly happen. There are steps that we need to take in order to reach that goal. The same is true of our thoughts. Okay, take one step at a time to create the belief that you can do it. Okay? All right. So over the last 45 minutes, we've talked about 3 reasons you're currently not getting the outcomes that you want, 3 mindset shifts to creating better outcomes, and then I've shared some steps that you can use to begin practicing that mindset shift over time. Okay? If you are interested in exploring these concepts more deeply, I'd be happy to help you uncover what might be holding you back from creating the outcomes that you want. This is my booking website. You can feel free to book an hour with me. There's no obligation. We're just going to explore the outcomes that you want and what might be holding you back. That's my scheduling website. Okay, I am going to stop talking now. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.